Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital fund. And on this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are truly shaping and many times changing the overall sports industry. And today we're going to talk sports betting and entrepreneurship with Sean Green and Ryan Kramer of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. So let's just get right to it, guys. Sean and Ryan, welcome to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Thanks for having us on, Wayne. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, happy playoffs, Wayne.
Oh, man, isn't this a great time of the year? I mean, it's nothing better with the NFL playoffs, right?
Oh, yeah. Super Wildcard weekend. I mean, they had the Wildcard weekend. That wasn't enough. We had to add 2 more games. A Monday night playoff game. This is, I'm just eating this all up.
It's really going to be fun. I mean, look, Sean, we got to, I guess we'll hit this right off the bat. I mean, Sean and I are Eagles fans. Ryan, you're a Hokies fan? Is that what?
I'm a yes, Hokies. And, I'm currently in the transfer portal for my professional team. Giants, Dave Gettleman, Joe Judge. The circus is too much right now. I'm seeing what's out there. I'm certainly not going to pick the Cowboys or the Eagles, but of course, worst of luck to you guys this weekend.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that, Ryan. Way to kick things off here. That's the way we love it here. But look, I guess that's how the Eagles are feeling these days, Sean. It looks like the dog kind of hats, or not hats, the
dog mask. Yeah, I'm looking at the one we have in the cabinet right over there. I'm ready to break that thing out. Even though I ended up, it's a funny story. I tried to get the German Shepherd ones that Lane Johnson and Chris Long were wearing. Unfortunately, I got to Amazon too late, and they only had this giant poodle mask. So I was the guy in the 2017 run rocking the poodle mask. Some weird latex poodle mask, but yeah, I mean, again, they're coming in. No one believes in us. As we know, hungry dogs run faster. And I think it's crazy that you're making this Eagles team a 9-point dog. They play a lot better on the run, and the team really has changed from that 2-5 Eagles team. I was out in Vegas. I saw that game in person. It was kind of them bottoming out as a season, and they really turned things around.
They certainly have. And I was out there as well. And, I really actually was like, well, you know what? I guess we're just rebuilding the rest of the year. But my God, they really turned it around.
Yeah, no, I thought, I was like, oh man, maybe Sirianni's not the guy. Maybe we should trade Hurts. What are we doing? And they just started running the ball. It was just that simple. Now every fan in Philly thinks he's a qualified head coach and GM, because the entire season we're just saying run the damn ball. They finally run the ball, and we've off to the races.
Well, we can certainly talk about the NFL and this super weekend that's the super wild card weekend that's coming up. And my God, I also agree with you. I mean, the fact that we have a Monday night wild card playoff game is just unbelievable and so smart of the NFL. And that's really what we want to talk about is the business side of sports, and also how you guys got started. I mean, back in 2011, I believe, was when you first started the Sports Gambling Podcast. We'd love to hear your story and how it all came about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm originally from the East Coast, outside of Philly. Kramer, obviously, also from the East Coast, Jersey native, Giants fan. We became friends here out in Los Angeles. 2 of the few people who enjoy watching football on Sunday in Los Angeles. If you've seen SoFi Stadium, not a lot of diehard football fans locally. So we became good friends from just watching games. We love talking about games, love betting on games. And it was around 2011. We're like, this should be a show. Us just talking about the games, what we like, what we don't like.
And part of it was there wasn't a lot of gambling content back then. It was very taboo. We didn't talk about it. We didn't show the lines on the screen. So we figured that there might be a marketplace for folks like us who like to talk about the games, like to hear other like-minded individuals talk about the game and kind of form an opinion that way.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the name of the show is Sports Gambling Podcast, because no one ever thought to do a sports gambling podcast really prior to us. I mean, the only stuff you really saw podcast wise was maybe like Bill Simmons, Cousin Sal. They talk about guessing the spreads and the lines, but as far as content of just people picking games against the spread and talking about who they want to bet on this week. It just wasn't there.
It was almost an exclusive tout marketplace. It was almost exclusively people who were giving you a taste to then sell you their picks. And so,
yeah. And that's really kind of the genesis of the show. You know, back in the day, you would listen to these guys on AM Sports Talk Radio. My 5-star mega whale lock of the century. Serious investors only. Call this number. And you know, Kramer and I are like, these guys are idiots. You know, no one can really crack the NFL. But why not just have fun trying? We love betting on games, and you know, we even kind of gave ourselves you know, kind of tout nicknames. So I'm Sean Stacking the Money Green, and he's Ryan Real Money Kramer. We kind of came up with these, you know, making fun of the touts that you would hear on AM radio, and we ended up sticking with them because they are kind of fun, the names. But yeah, it was just, hey, you know, you shouldn't be buying picks. These guys don't know anything more than the average person, and that's kind of the genesis of the show.
Well, we certainly, you know, here at 76 Capital really enjoy your show, and I love the nicknames. But before we go any further, probably should give out your Twitter handles, because that's something that certainly people can follow as well. The Sports Gambling Podcast itself on Twitter is Gambling Podcast. Sean, your personal Twitter is Sean T Green. That's SEAN T Green, and you know, Ryan's, yours of course is Kramer Centric. So if you follow these guys at Sean T Green, at Kramer Centric, at Gambling Podcast, these are guys you want to follow. They are not the ones that you're getting that 5-star crazy review that you're talking about. That's some crazy stuff, and that's one of the reasons, quite frankly, that, you know, I think, Sean, when we first connected, at the time we were just getting started as an investor in VSiN, with the sports betting network, and it was one of the things that we connected on.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, I think it was one of the, I was listening to one of your speeches at, I think, an FSGA event, and you said VSiN kind of came into the marketplace like, hey, we're going to be the CNBC of the sports gambling world. We're going to cover it all day, every day, you know, give you market insights, the reports, that kind of thing. And I think our network, what we're going for is maybe like an MTV Comedy Central version of that same idea, where we're covering it. You know, we're not as maybe analytical based. We're having a little more fun with it. It's a little bit more casual, a little more loose, but similar idea of like, hey, we started originally as just Ryan and I doing our main show. And then a few years ago, we kind of turned it into a network and launched a bunch of podcasts, you know, covering the different sports.
Well, Sean, you know, maybe just, you know, let's talk a little more about that. You mentioned MTV. That's a little bit of your background as well, right? You know, and I'd love to hear, you mentioned you grew up in the right outside of Philadelphia, but how did you end up, you know, here? You know, what were some of the things that you did personally prior to starting the podcast network?
Yeah, no, I mean, I moved out to Los Angeles when I was, 20 years old, and I wanted to pursue a career in entertainment, stand-up comedy, television writing, and just came out to LA, kind of hit the ground running. I've done a ton of stand-up over the years, even put out like a sports-themed stand-up comedy album called This Loss Hurts Us All. It's something my dad yelled after an Eagles loss. And then, you know, slowly chipped away in the TV game. My, you know, working a lot of jobs, interning, production assistant, writer assistant. But my last day job, as it was before we kind of like fully switched over to focusing on the network, was I was the head writer of MTV's Ridiculousness. So worked on a bunch of clip shows. I worked on one with Rob Gronkowski, like a kid's version of Ridiculousness, and he was a ton of fun to work with. Whatever you put in the teleprompter, he would read, or at least try to read to his best ability. And yeah, so that was kind of my background: TV production, entertainment, that kind of stuff. Kramer, he kind of comes from a more tech background.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like my path couldn't have been different than Sean's. He kind of always seemed to be on the path of content creation, whereas I just moved out here to bet on myself. I figured it was nice weather. I like being outside. I like the beach. I had just graduated from Virginia Tech. I knew a couple guys out here, so I just plowed forward, figured I could find a job. Ended up finding a job, kind of working my way up into the tech industry. That last day job for me was Hulu. So for me, it was all about, again, betting on myself. I definitely left a very good situation because of the climate with sports gambling, because of what we have being kind of this independent entity in a sea of money and big sharks. So I felt like the right time to kind of bet on ourselves, being the sports gambling podcast, being that our mantra is let it ride. It felt natural for us to kind of jump in.
Well, when did that happen? The sort of the let it ride moment, the time when you said, you know what, we're going all in, enough with this, working for others, for someone else. We're going to just be entrepreneurs and trailblazers in our own right. What kind of made that thing happen?
For me, it was like a time thing. It was the point at which I could no longer kind of make this a nighttime hobby and continue with my day job. It was a pretty clear decision. It was basically kind of mid-COVID, honestly. Some things happened in my corporate life that kind of lined things up. And then, with COVID happening, we kind of leaned in harder. We thought it was a good opportunity with sports being canceled to kind of find cracks, find areas that we could fill the entertainment void. And that was really when at least for me, that's when it felt like we kind of went from kind of leaning on the wall to pushing with full force.
Yeah, I think COVID was actually a good stress test for our business and for a lot of businesses because, hey, sports were completely done. What are you going to talk about? You have a sports gambling podcast network. You have no sports. What are you going to do now, big guy? And, we leaned into some fun stuff early on. And then we started doing these simulated games. We would spin up Madden simulations and we would do play-by-play. And, our partners at the time, they would set betting lines. And we kind of not only maintained the audience that we had, but we brought in a bunch of random people, new listeners, new viewers, because they were just desperate people looking for something to bet on. They stumble across this Madden stream and they're like, hey, these guys are pretty fun. They're doing play-by-play. They're busting each other's chops. They're not taking themselves too seriously. And so they got on from the Sims and they've once sports came back, they were all in on the traditional stuff.
And, kind of stealing from my previous career in tech, it's really, community is a huge thing, right? Getting feedback, kind of cultivating that community to make your app or your product a thing. And for us during the sim days, it kind of clicked for me like, hey, we have this community here that is dying just to hang out with us on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night every week because there's nothing else going on. And so that kind of spawned up us kind of creating a Slack space for them to hang out and kind of expanding the virtual offices of SGPN to kind of include the community, which has turned into kind of maybe one of the more critical pieces of our business.
Yeah, I really wanted to ask you guys about the SGPN Authentic College Football Championship that I recently saw that just was completed. How did that go down? Who played in the championship?
Well, it's funny, and Kramer was joking about. We have a guy who does a bunch of college stuff for us, Colby. He's always whining and moaning that it's not a real college football playoff unless you get 16 teams. So we spun up the NCAA 14 game on the Xbox. We updated the rosters, and then we essentially simulated an entire 16-team college football playoff. And then we did play-by-play for the championship game, and it ended up being Utah, Ohio State at the Rose Bowl. So we picked the Rose Bowl to be the championship. Somehow Utah and Ohio State ended up meeting. It was crazy. Pretty fun game, although CJ Stroud got knocked out early. Utah took it home, and the Utes are national champions.
Shout out to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing. I mean, it's that's why this whole bowl thing could actually work, right? It ended up having a Pac-12 and Big Ten team at the Rose Bowl. It's what they've always wanted, what they want to keep the tradition, and you kept it for them.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It just worked out like that. It was crazy.
And to our earlier points of how smart the NFL is, they're just adding more. Like their strategy is just more. And to speak back to the college football playoff folks and what we were able to figure out in the small offices of the SGPN, but playoffs are good.
Well, and kind of just tagging on to Ryan's point about the NFL, them just adding another week to the season or adding more teams to the playoffs. We kind of came to that same conclusion when it came to content that, hey, wait, if we're, our end game is getting the most downloads. Hey, if we do more episodes, that's more downloads. So, or, it's more ways people can find us. I mean, it seems very obvious in hindsight, but instead of just doing a weekly, 2-hour podcast, let's do 4 30-minute podcasts, because maybe people only want to hear about the daily fantasy, or maybe only people want to hear about the college stuff. And that was kind of the genesis of us expanding the type of stuff we cover, and kind of creating a network of, hey, people just crave this content, may as well give them opportunities to download it.
I think it's really smart to hear you talk about that. I mean, because so many times you hear entrepreneurs or businesses that all they do is the same thing every single year, every single day. It's the same thing. And they wonder, why things aren't changing. And if you don't change, yourself, then how are you to expect your business to change or things to move? So we're constantly, here at 76 Capital, always talking to our entrepreneurs and all the people that we have an opportunity to work with, to talk about, constantly thinking about what is the next thing? How do you constantly change the game? So for you guys, looking at 2022, what's next? What are some of the exciting things that you're going to be doing with the SGPN network?
Yeah, well, we got our app launched end of last year. That's been big. Obviously, just having an app for engaging with the people is huge. We've really ramped up our video for our main show, the Sports Gambling Podcast. We're going to be expanding that to the rest of the shows on our network, because again, you kind of just keep your finger on the pulse of stuff and say, hey, people are watching more videos. Sports gambling's, there's a lot happening on TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok, but hey, we got to figure it out. There's eyes and ears on TikTok. We got to figure it out. So kind of expanding our reach as far as distribution platforms, but then also just keep ratcheting up the type of shows we do. I mean, we just launched our NHL show. We got, like a Flyers fan, a guy up in Canada as well, another guy rounding it out. And yeah, I mean, again, it's just bigger, better, more.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that, it's just expansion in both dimensions, right? Like more shows, more lanes, paving more content kind of roads to allow people to find that niche sport that they're into. Something we found, don't lean into the major stuff as hard. Maybe you can find these minor sports like curling, like the USFL, that people are still interested in, and there's not as much competition. And then to Sean's point, like the vertical expansion of just more distribution, more partnerships with platforms that can help us find new listeners and find new members of our community.
Yeah. And Ryan mentioned curling, which kind of sounds like a joke, but our lead editor for the site, he's a, Bills fan, a diehard curler as well. He goes, hey, we should write up a betting odds thing for curling. And we actually had one of the medalists on our show. It was a fun interview, but again, we place that on the website as kind of like, baiting a little trap there with a little bit of cheese. And if someone's searching on Google for how to bet on curling, they're probably someone that's going to like our network, because if you're wanting to bet on curling, you're also probably wanting to bet on college football, NFL, all these other things. So finding, creating some content for the real niche stuff that we might rank very high in Google for, because there's not a lot of competition, has been a fun way for us to find some diehard fans.
Well, I love that. And look, here's an opportunity for us to do some business together. So here you go, right? So we have our 76 Capital sports advisory business led by my partner, Dan Bravado, and we are working with Magic City Highlight down in Miami, literally creating a highlight league, which you're going to hear about later this month, I should say. And, talk about a really interesting niche with young, unbelievably talented highlight players, some of which were former baseball players, college football players, who are now unbelievable players in highlight, and they're going to have teams and leagues and all sorts of stuff happening and lines. So Bet Rivers is going to be doing. It will be putting this out across the country. You'll be able to watch the shows on their app, as well as on YouTube and many other places, and they're doing some distribution deals for them. So that could be really cool, a way for us to do more things together.
Oh yeah, the Highlight Gambling Podcast coming to the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and we have a guy covering disc golf right now. I know DraftKings. I think they were involved in somewhat in the AUDL, I think it's called. But again, these like niche things, and that's why I've been such an advocate for gambling. I mean, obviously, I love it. I love the sweat. I love the whole world around it. But it really is creating opportunities for a lot of sports that maybe would have got swept under the rug. But all of a sudden you set a betting line and you get people watching, you get people interested. And, I think it can honestly really be big for women's sports as well. Like the WNBA or the women's college basketball tournament. I think if you're setting betting lines on these, all of a sudden, maybe, a bunch of guy sports fans who would normally be like, I don't want to watch women's sports, but you get them to fill out a bracket, or maybe they're betting on some over-unders on some WNBA games. All of a sudden they become fans of the sport. So I think there's, sports gambling really has some positive angles as well.
If we learned one thing from like the AMC or the Dogecoin experience, is that the internet really can tie together these kind of small niche crowds and, turn them into more than just a tiny, like 1% edge case. So I think like the distribution of sports on betting platforms is the future, and like you just discussed with Bet Rivers and Highlight. Like I think we're just going to see that more and more and more, and just close that gap between the content and the league itself.
Well, it's just certainly really exciting things that are now coming about. I mean, and that's what we're so excited about 76 Capital, and why we're so excited to have these kinds of conversations with guys like you who are really in the middle of it all and thinking about this every single day. I mean, when you think about your business today, how have you monetized that? Who are some of the partners that you're currently working with, or others that you're looking to work with, that could really help you expand your business?
I mean, our content model, our business model right now is primarily advertiser driven. I mean, it's a pretty simple formula. We put out a ton of free content on the website, a ton of downloadable audio content, and then we sell we sell ads in the podcast. I think one thing that really separates us from other podcasts is our live reads. We do a really good job of integrating them into the show, not making them feel stiff. I mean, again, that's a big reason why our business has been viable from the beginning, was that, the promo codes we read, the reads we do have a very high conversion rate, especially for stuff in the gambling space, which those people are already paying a premium because it's, it well, it's kind of like an arms race right now to get people signed up. So fortunate to be in that space. But even the non-gambling stuff, the guy stuff, the Manscaped, and that kind of stuff that is always looking to get the guy sports talk listener. They're always a big part. We have an ongoing partnership with Blue Wire podcast network, and then through them, the WinBet is our presenting sponsor for our show and the entire network. They built an amazing studio at the Win out there in Las Vegas, and we were able to show you the studio there. So we're very excited to be partnered up with them and do all the live shows that we're doing with them. And then honestly, a big reason why we go to a lot of these trade shows and conferences, I mean, it's great to hear new stuff, what's going on, but we also partner up with a lot of smaller startups. A company that's, hey, we're doing this online betting exchange, but we don't have a huge budget, but we want some guys to test it out and get to, get the ears of some hardcore listeners, and hardcore gamblers. And our show is kind of perfect for that. So a lot of newer products that are in the sports gambling space. I mean, I'm sure you see, every person's trying to reinvent the wheel with like different ways to bet props or parlay them or whatever. A lot of those companies are great for us because they're looking for feedback a lot of times on the platform, on the experience, and our guys are great at giving that. So.
Look, I mean, this past weekend, as we're taping here, last weekend was the first weekend in New York where mobile sports betting went live. It was pretty wild to see it. What did you guys think?
I couldn't imagine being someone who placed their first ever bet on that Chargers Raiders game. Because what an absolute rush. Like, you got the best of it, friend. Like, you're never going to have a better experience betting a game. I mean, it's great. It's unfortunate. Like everything, right? Like, what we need this everywhere right now. And so for New York to be one of the, the first like kind of massive state to be opening the doors, we obviously have a huge bit of our audience in the Northeast where gambling is culture. And so it's great to kind of hear people like they're talking, which site should I go sign up at? Who has the best bonuses? So Yeah, it's exciting because, as we live out in California, and I think we're kind of just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, like when are we going to pop? Because it's going to be fun. Like everyone can find their way to get down on their action, but there is some excitement about it's like going shopping at a brand new mall or something like that, where you get to like pop into these new places and kind of experience it in a different way.
Well, hopefully this year or maybe early next year, California, Texas, Florida, Massachusetts. I mean, come on, like we got to get everybody in this game, and that would really it'll amazingly change the game in really big ways.
Yeah, I mean, New York's a giant domino, and you think other states that are big states go, hey, we're missing out on this tax revenue. COVID probably drained a lot of these states' coffers as far as just unemployment, giving relief to businesses that needed it, et cetera, et cetera. And now you have this golden goose of sports gambling. You've already seen it in a bunch of other states. You see how much money they're bringing in for the state. It seems like a no-brainer. I think it's going to eventually happen. It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. So when you guys look at what you're doing right now, are there certain, sports broadcasters or hosts that you guys look up to, or you sort of have admired over the years, or sort of look at the way you do your thing, that you model your game after them?
I mean, I think we both grew up listening to Howard Stern, so it probably starts there. Whether it's like the pulling the curtain all the way back, kind of as much transparency to create that community, and you have fans, they're super fans, and now they're contributors. Like that all kind of, to me, is really just stealing from Howard Stern. And then you look at the sports broadcasters today, the Dan Patricks, who are also kind of Howard Stern disciples in some ways, the Scott Van Pelts, like these guys are all kind of running versions of what Howard brought us, which was like pull back the curtain all the way. And if it's fun and entertaining, make it part of your show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Scott Van Pelt fan. He's been, as far as like a mainstream media voice, like ahead of the curve on the gambling stuff. He's been all over it. And to Kramer's point too, like he's got a soundboard there. We've always had a soundboard with sound effects and stuff like that. And obviously a show on ESPN is way different. But again, to Kramer's point, like the Howard Stern model of like, hey, it's a hang. You're creating a world that people can come visit, that they talk about the world after they leave the show. I mean, that's a big thing, is like where we've created a space with the Slack and then the social media where it's, yeah, you listen to the show, but then you have a place to hang out with like like-minded DGens in the Slack and really connect with people. And I think that's something that, Howard was early to the game with, certainly.
And it's cool when we hear about our fans kind of meeting up together organically with other fans and going to a sporting event or going to Vegas or like going on a golf trip together. So yeah, very, very cool.
Can you explain a little bit more how that works? I mean, I understand. So you have a dedicated Slack channel for your show? Is that
so? Basically, like the rest of the world is on Discord. Call us boomers or whatever. But again, coming from tech, Slack was the kind of way to do this, and it started as just our business. As we went very virtual, and we have contributors all over the world, it made sense to have a virtual office. Now, what we didn't think about was like, what if we just opened these virtual offices to everyone? So no matter who you are, you're welcome to come hang out. You're welcome to hang out in the Slack spaces. We obviously have some private spaces for employees, but guess what? If you're in the Slack space contributing there's going to be opportunity for you to maybe write an article, maybe hop on a podcast. So it kind of is like also our bullpen, our cultivation of talent. Like when you're near the bottom or closer to the bottom, people are going to steal your talent when they get good. So you have to have a really good process of filling those holes as they happen. And I think part of that is like having this, grassroots people who really want to be there and are sharp people. And like Sean said, they want to be around other like-minded folks. So for us, it's been great. It's helped us to sharpen our spears and keep the content flowing.
Very cool. Well, listen, make sure that you follow the Sports Gambling Podcast at Gambling Podcast. Follow Sean Green at Sean T. Green, and follow Ryan Kramer at Ryan Centric. And as we start to wind things down on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show here, I would love to go through a couple kind of quick hitters, a couple questions that kind of get your thoughts on this. So sort of like predictions for 2022 as to what you think is gonna happen. So you think about, we talked about tech, we talked about how important that is to this whole world. What do you think will be the number one tech company that has the biggest impact on the sports industry in 2022? We'll start with you, Ryan.
I think it's clearly going to be Amazon. I think, pulling back the curtain, coming from Hulu and Disney and understanding what they were looking into behind the scenes with their streaming platforms and second screen experiences and things like that, I think Amazon is just more willing to push the envelope. And Amazon is smart. They see the money in football. I think they see the money in gambling. And I think they're going to find their way into this space one way or another very quickly, if they haven't already, honestly.
Yeah, I'll co-sign Ryan's answer, being the tech guy. He's got a good handle on it. But again, you see, like the NFL Sunday Ticket is they're going to start bidding on that naming rights. I would not be shocked if Amazon Prime, they're already doing like some Thursday night games. If they just come in, lock up the NFL Sunday Ticket, and then they could certainly partner up with a big name DraftKings or FanDuel and have like integrations within the live streaming of NFL Sunday Ticket, or they're Amazon. Why wouldn't they just spin up their own sports book? I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happened.
Well, and as a relative like novice to business, but understanding tech, I think looking around the gambling space, you see a lot of businesses that resemble kind of older, or different industry businesses, and you see the businesses that replicate more the tech industry. And to me, like that would also be a flavor, like looking around which books kind of operate as a tech company that also is a sports book versus a sports book that had to build a tech stack to support this thing.
Yeah, really interesting points. So many things happen. We haven't heard anything from Fanatics yet this year. No one really knows what ESPN's going to do yet.
Yeah, obviously, they're huge too.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Amazon, you got to watch them in a big way. So what do you think will be the most watched sports event in 2022?
Oh, I'm always an advocate for the NFL, the Super Bowl. If you're talking American audience, Super Bowl, but again, I'm not the soccer expert. I'm pretty sure we have a World Cup coming. So World Cup final, soccer, which, Soccer Sean will emerge.
It is a winter World Cup.
Fun.
So there's some competition there. But yeah, come on. It's the World Cup followed by the Super Bowl. And then let's just throw March Madness week 1 into there.
Absolutely. How about this? From a lot of these lists at the end of each year, they talk about the most influential person. What do you think? Who potentially would be the most influential person of 2020 as we're sitting here early in January of 2022?
I'm like taking it outside. If we're just asking a human question, like I'm a big believer that Elon Musk is changing the world. He's getting humans to Mars. I know this isn't sports gambling, but it's hard to look past that for me. In the sports gambling space, I don't know, Sean. I think there's a number of companies kind of standing up and making a claim. So I guess I'll be curious to see who puts their neck out there to do something different. That would be it's a cop out answer, but.
Yeah, we'll say Wayne Kimmel. Oh. I like his eye for talent. He's got a lot of good investments. He's going to be shaping it. No, and obviously, certainly Wayne's a good nominee, but I couldn't really tell you because who knows what like a Jason Robbins over at DraftKings, their stock price has kind of gone down here recently. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a big move up their sleeve. FanDuel has done a ton of content acquisition, but yeah, as far as changing it, again, I don't have a great answer, but that's kind of why it's an exciting marketplace to be in, because there is no obvious answer of someone who's going to change things. And, maybe it's someone listening to the show right now.
I like that. Hopefully it's some entrepreneur that's out there that's literally looking at things completely differently than anyone else and potentially will change the world. So the last thing I'll ask you is a similar kind of a question, but it's more of these kind of thing, like what, really kind of your guess as to what will truly change the sports world in 2022. Like what'll kind of shock people's minds? You mentioned earlier, even, I guess to a lot of people, Amazon is still kind of a shock to the sports industry because a lot of people look at Amazon still as a place where you just go buy stuff. and don't really think about the Twitch, that they own Twitch, don't really think about the fact how they're really starting to lean in sports. But is there something that you see that will potentially happen this year in 2022 or something that you just want to kind of make up and say, but wouldn't it be amazing if fill in the blank happened?
Yeah, I'll give you two real quick here. One, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. No one's going to see that coming, Wayne. Give me the Eagles at 66-1. My second one is the integration of sports gambling and cryptocurrency. I think there is something out there, and I've heard a lot of pitches. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. The sports gambling space meeting NFTs is a very exciting idea. I don't think anyone's really locked it down, but it's interesting. Like all our old friends in the offshore markets, they really got a nice bump with the being able to take advantage of cryptocurrency simply to pay people out for them to deposit. I think the legal sports market, there's a play there somewhere to kind of connect cryptocurrency. Because the same guys that are really into crypto are also into sports gambling. There's got to be a product there that combines it. I've spent a lot of time thinking what that product is. I don't have it yet, but I think there's something that's going to happen in that sports crypto space that'll really blow people's minds.
Well, and drawing it back to our community, someone in our community just threw out the first, or what we think is the first crypto peer-to-peer betting exchange that popped up somewhere. So I think that kind of, that kind of inertia towards, like Sean said, these two converging kind of paths.
Well, yeah. And again, a lot of the people that were messing around with crypto are also now into the legal sports book because of their states. And crypto has a similar trajectory as sports gambling. It started out just some guys in their basements, no one would talk about it. And now you got Matt Damon walking around in a space suit talking about how awesome crypto is. And the same could be said for sports gambling. Like everyone's kind of in on it. And I think those worlds, they got to connect somewhere. And I don't know what it is, but I think there's something big coming.
Well, I have to tell you guys, it's been really a pleasure speaking with both of you. I mean, you got to think about this, Sean. The first time we met, we were literally talking about, wouldn't it be amazing if more than 5 states had sports betting?
Yes.
And now, right? And look where we are today, where we're literally talking about the fact that basically everyone's going to have sports betting eventually. And we're talking about the true innovation, the true opportunity of bringing together crypto and NFTs and the blockchain and all this into an industry that was once something that was only legal to do in the state of Nevada. But now the entrepreneurs, the innovators are all coming to this space. Look, I'll tell you, Ryan, who knows? Elon Musk may come up with the answer as to what the next big thing is when it comes to sports betting.
His Dogecoin sportsbook.
He's into crypto. He's putting chips in monkeys' brains. Like he is going to take if there's a crypto sports gambling perfect world, it's maybe Elon will find it.
Maybe Elon will become the ultimate tout. He'll come up with some AI thing that predicts NFL scores. He's the only guy I'd buy his picks.
Well, it's really been awesome. Again, thank you so much. Hope to see you guys in LA or in Vegas sometime soon. Maybe at the Super Bowl, I'll run into you guys out there. And it's been awesome having you. Please check out the Sports Gambling Podcast. Sean and Ryan, it's been awesome having you on the show. And once again, I'm Wayne Kimmel for your 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. Thanks, everybody, for listening.